Welcome to the first video made by Hackfiber. Today we are here to make this game, the tic-tac-toe game in JavaScript, HTML and CSS. So let's get started. So before moving towards the code, let's look at the final result of today's coding session. So we'll be building this game over here. As you can see, we have 9 grids in the screen. We'll be the full screen, and then we have the computer player, and then we have the human player or us, or it says you, and we have our score. We have the symbols. So the computer is an O and we are X. So as you can see, I have played this game already, so I have won once, so my score is 1 and the score of AI is 0. So let's play again. So I go over here, and as you can see, when I click on the box, the color of the box changes, and also the computer selects any box randomly. Let's select another one. The computer is about to win, so let's go over here, and then now as you can see, we can win this. So we won. So as you can see, it says game over and the result is you win, and we can restart the game, and the score changes over here. So it adds +1 to the score, and then we have, yeah, this is the thing. So we can, the result can also end in a draw. So again, I won the game, so score is 3. Let's try to draw the game. Okay, so I lost this time, so computer won. Let's try to draw it. Let's see if I can draw it. I think this is a draw. So yeah, we will be building this game completely using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. No frameworks used, just plain HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Okay, so I have a folder. Let's make a folder right now. I'll make tic-tac-toe. I made the folder. Okay, I have this folder over here. Let me open this folder inside my VS Code. So let's right click and then open with code. You can use any other editors that you want. I'm using VS Code. Also, you can use any browser. I'm using Brave. You can use Google Chrome or Firefox, any that you like. Okay, so let's make a file first. Index.html. Let's make a folder for CSS. So CSS, and inside the folder let's add index.css, and let's make another folder called JS, and inside the JS let's also add index.js. Okay, so first let's generate this HTML boilerplate. So in VS Code, you can just type exclamation mark and then hit tab. So this will generate the basic boilerplate of HTML markup. First, let's link the CSS. So link, just type link and hit tab, so you get the link, and then you can type the folder name or the path to the file. So it is CSS, inside CSS folder, inside index.css, and also the JavaScript. So script source, it is JS, inside JS folder and index.js. Okay, so let's save it, and then let's type hello Hackfiber. Now I have an extension live server enabled in my VS Code editor. You can also enable it. Just go to the extension library and then search live server, and then the first link, this one, live server by Ritwik Day, you can install it and then enable it. So after enabling that, you can right click on your index.html file. Let's close this, and then you can just click on open with live server, or as you can see, there is the shortcut is Alt L or Alt O. So let's place Alt L. Okay, this didn't work. Alt O. Okay, so Alt O works in my case. I don't know what happened to Alt L. Okay, anyway, so now what happens is, if I changed anything, this is Hackfiber, then this changes automatically. This is Hackfiber. Now let's look at the CSS, if CSS works. For that, I'm going to wrap this inside the container. So let's wrap this. So if you are wondering what I did, I just typed something. Let's say I have this word over here, and then if I select this in my keyboard, if I type Ctrl plus Shift plus P, then you can get this preference tab, and inside this, if you type wrap, so this is an emit syntax or emit shortcut. Emit is built inside VS Code, so you can do that. And then if you wrap something inside, and then you can type div.container, then or simply .container, then it will wrap inside a particular division or any other tag that you want. So now let's save this. Then this is Hackfiber. Now this went towards the top. Now let's go and see the CSS. So .container. Let's type border 1 pixel solid red, just to be sure that it is working. So it is working. As you can see, there is the border is the border appears in the page. Let's also see the JS. So console.log, let's log Hackfiber, and then if we inspect this page inside the console over here, as you can see, there is Hackfiber. Okay, so probably in your page it is appearing in this way, both stacked. So I don't like that. I want my this developer tools to come outside and be a separate window. So for that I can go and click on this customize and control dev tools, and then if then over here in the dock side I can simply press this undock into separate window, and then this will let this entire developer tool in a separate window. Fine. Okay, so for now I'm just going to focus on my HTML. So what do we need in this project? The first thing that we need, the most important part of this entire application, of course, is the 3x3 grid. So let's first make that. Inside my container division, I'm going to make a class grid container. Let's not use camel casing in this. Let's use container. And then inside this div I want nine different sections, right? So I'm going to name each of them grid. All of them will get a class of grid. So let's hit tab sorry, and then as you can see a grid appears. Now what you can do is you can just copy this 9 times, but what I like to do in VS Code, there is on an emit, there is an easier way. Just type dot grid. This will create a class or division class of grid, and then if you multiply that with 9, then emit will create 9 separate division classes automatically. Okay, that is good. Now we cannot see anything in this screen right now because these grids do not have any content inside them. So first let's go to our CSS, and then first let's style our container. So before doing any of that, I'm going to add some default properties to everything in my web page or application. So the asterisk is also known as our universal selector. So I'm selecting everything in my page, and I'm going to give margin of 0 and padding of 0. Also I'm going to give box sizing to border box. Then what I can do is my container, okay, before doing anything in my container, first let me bring this entire container to the center. So first if I type something over here, it appears over in this section over here, as you can see. So I want this to come in the middle. So to do that, I'm going to select my body, and in my body I'm going to type display of flex, justify content center, align item center. So this will bring this to the center, but I want this in the center of my screen. So to do that, what I can simply do is, before flexing, I'm going to write width of 100 viewport width and height of 100 viewport height. If I do that, then this will come in the center. Now VW means viewport width. What it does is it will divide my entire viewport or this viewing space into 100 individual spaces or 100 individual parts, and then same with the height. VS is viewport height, so it will divide my height into 100 individual parts. So that means it will cover my entire space. So this is important because if I resize my browser, then still this small section will again automatically be divided into 100 equal parts. So that is the reason I'm using viewport and viewport height. Okay, now I do not want this over here, so I'm going to remove it. Then my dot grid, all of my grids should have a let's give some width of 50 pixel and height of 50 pixel for now, and then let's give some background color to background color PSCKG background color to has 2A. This is a shade of black. Okay, and then let's give a border of 2 pixels solid red. As you can see, all of my grids are in one single column, right? But I want them to be in a 3x3 grid. So to do that, first let's see, I have a grid container over here, right? All of these grid boxes have a parent container, grid container. So what I can do is, in my dot grid container, first let's display them in grid. because they are grid, so I want them to display it in grid. Now I want my grid to be 3 by 3 column, right? So what I can do is grid template columns, I want them to be in 3 separate columns, right? So I want 1 1 1 column. So I want each grid, so in my first there should be 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, but I want all of these columns to have a size of 50 pixels of height of width, right? So what I can do is 50 pixel 50 pixel 50 pixel. So if I do that, then as you can see 3 by 3 grid is formed. So what it is doing is it is dividing the grid container into 3 different columns, and each column has a width of 50 pixel, and also this grid also has a width of 50 pixel. That is the reason that this is being displayed in a 3 by 3 grid. Now first let's remove the border. I don't like the white border, the red border. Now I want some space to be in between all of these grids. So what I can do is simply write grid gap of, let's say, 10 pixels. So this will separate them. Now as you can see, my 50 pixel over here is repeating 5 times. So let's just use a variable. So I'm using a variable because if I have to change something, like if I want to make this a bit bigger, right? I want to make this, let's say, 100 pixels, then I have to change it in 5 times. Rather than doing that, what I can do is I can make use of variables. So let's make CSS variables root. So in CSS variables, variables are declared using 2 dashes and then the variable name. So this is the dimension. So dimension, I'm going to give this 50 pixel for now, and then to use the variable, it is very simple. Let's remove this and then type dash dash dim, and then as you can see a var keyword comes, and then inside the bracket the name of this variable is used. So I want this 3 times, so I'm going to copy this, paste and paste. So this should not change anything, and also I want this to be over here as well in my height and width. So now if I change this to 100 pixels, so this and everything will change to 100 pixels, right? So that is good. 80 pixels looks good. Now I want some radius inside also. I don't want them to be entirely circular, right? So I want them to be somewhat circular. Let's see first how will they look if I make them entirely like a circle. So let's give border radius of 50%. So I don't want them to look like this. This looks like dots, but they are not dots. So let's make them look like 20 pixels or 15. Okay, 15 pixels looks good. Now the other thing that I want is whenever I hover over them, so for now I'm going to close my developer tool. So whenever I hover over them, I should be able to, in my UI, it should say me that you can click on this. So for that, the best thing to do is point at them, right? I want this to be look like I can click on it. So what I can do is in my dot grid, if I hover over this, if I mouse over this, then I want my cursor to be pointer. So this will change this in my mouse cursor to pointer. So as you can see now, it looks like I can click on them, but of course nothing happens right now. But still, you can see that I can click on this, and it seems like I can click on them. Also, let's make the background color to something else. Now I also want to make some variables for my colors. So let's first make our first color, let's say the primary color. So that is the black one. So that is primary, CLR-primary. So this, you must keep these 2 dashes every time when you make variables, but after this dashes you can keep any variable name. I'm going to name this CLR primary because this is a primary color. So this is S2A to A2A. So I can now change this to dash color primary. So this should not change anything. Let's make this dash hover color now. Sorry, CLR dash hover. Let's make this for now. Let's also make this 2A to A2A, and then in VS Code, if you hover over any color, then this picker comes, which is very handy. I'm going to drag my picker to bluish green, so somewhat in this area. Okay, and then background color, if I now type color hover, so then when I hover over this, then the color changes. This is true bright, I guess. Let's make this a bit dimmer. Okay, this looks good. Also, as you can see now, the change is sudden, right? There is no transition in between the background changing. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is let's add a transition to the grid. transition of all to 150 milliseconds is in out. So what is it is doing is it is applying this transition to all properties in my hover state. That means the pointer and also background color. It is giving them a time of 150 milliseconds, so it will take 150 ms to actually, you know, this transition to occur, and then the transition type is easing in and out. Then the other thing is I want these buttons to look like they are floating in the air. So what I can do for that is, let's first make this transform. Let's make this translate y for about -10 pixels. So whenever I hover over this, then this is translating upwards. So 10 is too much. Let's make this 6 pixels. Okay, 4 pixels. Okay, so this looks like they are rising up, but I want them to look like they are floating or flying. So for that, I'm also going to apply some scale to this. So if I scale them by 1.1 times, then as you can see now they are scaling upwards, as they are scaling as well. But 1.1 is too much, so let's make it 1.05 and then 5 pixels. So this looks like they are floating above, right? Let's try to add a box shadow. Let's see how that goes. So box shadow, that also I'm going to make one more variable. So dash shadow 006 pixels dash see color primary. Will this work in my root itself? Let's see, let's check it out. If it does not, then we should, okay, it does not. Okay, and over here dash shadow. Okay, shadow works, but the shadow does not look like it is in the box. I don't think shadow is also necessary. Okay, fine, let's not add the shadow. This looks good on its own. Okay, so our grid is somewhat ready, but now what I need to do is whenever I click on this, X should appear, right? So if I type X over here, X, and then I have, okay, let's say I have O, and then over here I have another X, right? So all of this should not be in one single in the top column. I want them to be in the center of each of these grids. So for that, what I can do is simply in my grid, if I go to display of flex, there are other ways, but this is easier one. So justify content of center and align items to center. So if I do that, then as you can see, all of them are in the center now. Let's change the color to white. I'm not giving any variable name to white because it is white and it is obvious. Let's increase the font size to be 2 rem. Now I want a font family to change. So the font family that I want is, so for that I'm going to give one more variable. So dash font primary. I want the font family to be, the primary font family to be Billabong, and then a secondary font to be railway, railway, and sans serif. So railway is a kind of generic font, but if you are wondering which font is Billabong, then it is the font that Instagram uses in its logo. Okay, so now let's go over here and let's give them font family of dash font primary. Let's see, so this looks good, and then let's increase the size to about 3 rem or even 2.5. okay, this looks nice. Okay, so now I can remove. Okay, before removing, I also want, whenever there is a cross, I want that with the background to be red. So cross background color to be dash as cross. I have not made this variable, so I need to make it. And then in my circle, my background to be circle. So I'll just come over here, and then in my after color primary and color hover, let's make dash CLR cross. This should be CLR cross, not CLR cross. Okay, so CLR cross, and CLR cross should be, it should be, oh sorry, this should be, it is okay, this should be, let's say, for now let's just keep it to a, and then let's pick the color from the color picker. let's make this kind of red, and then now you cannot see the background color because I have not applied this class to any of the HTML classes over there. So in my X, let's add the class of cross. Let's remove the dot from here, and then in my O, let's add a class of circle. Now the circle has nothing because of course the circles class is not defined, so dash CLR circle. This can be 2 for now as well, and then if I change the color to, let's say, somewhat blue, okay, this looks good. Now also I want some text shadow for them so that they can look like they are placed on those boxes. So for that, if I go to grid and then if I go text shadow, dash a shadow, then this looks like they have some shadow. Okay, nice. I'm going to remove my other X's and O's from here. I'm going to add one O, and this should be a circle, and then I'm going to remove this two from here. Okay, X and O. So our grid is done. Simple, not too much of CSS. We used to use variables. I hope you are following with me. I don't need this container. Okay, the other thing now we need is, of course, the name of the player. So this would be AI, over here U, score, and then the symbol. So for that, I'm going to give div dot player info, and then div dot player name. Over here I'm going to add AI, and then after div I want my div dot player score. This should be P, and then there should be a score. Okay, I don't want P, it's okay, not anything. Score, 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 and then I want my span tag with an ID of AI score. Now in my IDs I am using camel casing. This is because I want all of this, I want in my JavaScript all of my naming conventions to be camel case. In my CSS I want my dash convention. Then let's make another division for our symbol. So player symbol, this should be an O for the AI. So we have these three things over here. This should be 0, not O. Okay, and then let's copy the player info, and then let's place it below the grid container, inside our container class, below the grid container. Okay, so now we have this two, and then this should be U, and then this should be an X. Okay, so first of all, in my dot player info, I want this to be display of flex. Let's see how far are these stretched. So width on, sorry, border 1 pixel solid red, so they are stretched until the container is. Then what I can do is, if I add justify content to space between, this will stretch all of the content and then place them far towards the edge of the container or edge of their parent. So let's remove the border, let's add some margin to this, 10, 1 rem and 0. Okay, and then let's also add some padding of 1 rem and 0. Okay, nice. So after my player info, now I want my player name, player score, and player symbol. So dot player name, dot player info, and comma dot player score, right? Not info, player name, player score, and player symbol. All of this should have a background color or the text font properties. So let's make them, first let's make them font family of dash dash font primary, and then font size of 2 rem or even 1.5. 2 is fine. I'm going to change the font size, font family for this, so this is good. I don't want them to be selectable like this. So as you can see, I can highlight them. If I want to remove that, I can just simply do user select of none, and then you can't select them anymore. I also, let's add this to the grid, whereas so grid user select of none. So you cannot select, you can just click on this, you cannot select the text. Okay, this looks good. Now player names should be font family of test as font secondary, and then font size to be, let's make this around 1 rem or 1.2. okay, and then in my player info, let's make, as you can see, they are not aligned in the center horizontally to score and also to 0. So to fix that, just simply add align items center, so that this will make them to come in the center. Now in all of this, I want this to have a border first. Now 1 pixel solid of red, solid solid of red. So as you can see, now if I increase the width and height of this, then I can give some background color. Now you may be wondering, why not give padding? We can give padding, but in this font in Railway it is fine, but in Billabong font, as you can see, this is longer, right? It looks like a rectangle. I want them to look like a square, so that is the reason I'm giving them width and height. So width of 60 pixels, height of 60 pixels, display of 60 is too much, let's make this 40 can be fine. Okay, and then display of flex, justify content of center, align items of center, so this will make them come in the center. And then again, what I can do is I can give them some background color. So let's increase this to 50 pixels, because this is what they are going to touch. So 50. Okay, this looks good. And then in, okay, this is good. Now let's make one more variable for dash clr. This can be named as player stat or the stat, and then I'm going to make this as 2A, but this will be some lighter version of 2A. So now dash clr stat, some more lighter, okay, and with some opacity as well. So let's decrease the slider to decrease the opacity. And then what I can do is I can border radius of 20 pixels. If I do this, okay, 10 too much, 10 pixels is looks good. And then let's remove this border. Now this is fine, but the score is not extended. So to make that, to fix that, let's copy the player score, and then let's add some width of about 100 pixels or 120 pixels, and then let's do justify content of space evenly. Okay, looks good. And also in my score, I want this to have some background color. So simply what I can do is in my player score, for my AI, I can give the color of, I can give the class of cross, and in my computer I can give the class of, this should be an Excel, this is cross, and this is circle. So if I save this, what happened? Why is not working? Aren't circle? Oh, okay. Circle and cross should be below this, because CSS is top-down approach. So that is the reason. So because of that, the color of cross and circle were replaced by the color over here, the background color of varStat, right? Okay. So now our HTML and CSS is done, except for one thing. Now we need an overlay. I just saw in my game, whenever the game is over, then there is an overlay that says game over, restart the game, you won, right? So to make that, inside my container division, or let's say after I player info, I'm going to make div.overlay, and then in my overlay I'm going to add div.title, overlay dash title, and then I'm going to add some game, add the game over. Then I'm going to give div dot game result, and then result will be saying, let's give a span of id result, and then let's say you win. Okay, and then finally after game result I want a button, so button id should be restart. So restart, I'm using id not class because I want to select this button in my JavaScript. Okay, so id is restart, so whenever I click on restart the game should reset, not this course but others. The x and o should go, and then the class of this class of red class and the blue class should go, right? Okay, so first let's make the overlay. So for that let's select the overlay in css, so dot overlay. Let's make this position absolute, and then top of 0, left of 0. Just send this to the top corner. Now let's give the width to 100% and height to 100%. Now what is the position actually doing is it is looking at the parent that is actually in the relative position. So it is inside the parent of this overlay is container, but the container does not have any relative position, right? It is static. It has a position static. So by default body has the position of relative, but if I change my container to have position of relative, then this one will be in the top corner of the container. So the container right now is this much space, right? So this overlay should be placed in this position. Let's see, container, if I do container position relative, so as you can see this came in the top corner of the container itself. If I do border 1 pixel solid red, then the container's top corner is actually the place where the top 0 and left 0 brought this overlay, but I want this to be in the top corner of this particular section because I want the overlay to cover entire body, right? So that is the reason I'm not adding position relative to the container. The body automatically or by default has position relative. Okay, so now what I can do is I'm going to give background color. First let's copy this color. I'm going to give some opacity as well, so that is the reason I'm not using the Css variable. So if I place this, then as you can see the entire body is covered with this color, but now if I change the opacity, decrease the opacity, then you can see the board, right? Okay, now I want this to come in the center, so let's display a flex, justify content center, align items center. Now this brought them in one individual rows, right? So game over result, you win, and result in one row, but I want them to be in one single column, not in one row, one column. So for that, flex direction of column, so this will make this come in one single column. Okay, fine. Now let's change the font family to dash font primary, and then okay, I'm not using font family over here. I'm going to change a font family in each of, so I want my game over to be my primary font, result you win to be my secondary font, and then this one can be anyone that you like. We will see that later. So first, overlay title. What did I name it? I named it overlay title. Okay, so overlay title, so this should be font family of dash font primary, font size of 2rem, or even let's make this 4rem, and then font, and then let's change the color to white, and then text shadow to dash shadow. Okay, this will make this, it will make it more visible to the viewer. Let's increase the font size to 5rem. Okay, this is fine. Now let's also make it, let's also not let the user to select any of the text over here, so user select of none, so you cannot select any text in this now, which is perfect. Finally, the other thing that we need is game result. So dot game result, I want this to be font family of dash font primary, sorry, font secondary, and then font weight. I want the font weight of my game result to be 900, and then font size to be 1.2rem, or even 2rem if you will, or let's say 4rem. So, and then let's add some, I don't think you need any background. Do you need, okay, let's change the color to white, and then let's add some background to dash as CLR primary, and then padding of 1.1 rem, and then border radius of 10 pixels, and shadow, box shadow to 006 pixels. 0 has to wait, let's see. Okay, this looks good. And then let's add some margin bottom of 10 pixels or 20. Okay, now style the button, so has restart. Let's make the restart button a bit bigger, so width of 650 pixels, width padding of 1 rem, 3 rem, font size of 2 rem, and font family, I'm going to give this font family of dash as font primary. Padding top of 0.5 rem. Padding bottom. Okay, and then let's remove the border of 0, background color of let's give this color hover. Let's see how this. Okay, this looks bad. And let's see shadow, box shadow 006 pixels. 0, just wait, sorry, box shadow, not sizing. Okay, restart. The color does not look good. Let's change the color to circle color, or even, yeah, background color can be transparent. Actually, this looks better. Transparent. And then let's decrease the opacity of the overlay. Okay, and then let's change the color to white, and then text shadow to dash as shadow, and finally let's increase the font size to not 2 rem, is less 2 less, 3 rem, and 4 rem padding. Okay, yeah, this looks good. And then let's increase the little spacing of 2 pixels. Okay, and border radius 10 pixels. Okay, restart. Now when I hover over this, then as you can see, if I click on it, there is another border, so that is actually an outline. So to remove that, let's go to hash restart and focus. Let's remove the outline to none. So now if I click on it, nothing happens. But if I hover over this, then again I want my cursor to be pointer, so let's just copy the hover state of this one as first. Then when I this should be comma restart for hover, so this increases, but I don't want this to be, of course I want the color to be okay, let's remove the color at first. Okay, so let's just increase that, just increase this, let's say transform for now, and then transition 150 milliseconds is in out to all of the properties. Okay, so this looks like this, but instead of scaling, let me try to do rotation in, I want this to go backwards, right? So let's say this is x, so let's x negative 50 degrees. Let's see, this looks like it goes backwards 10 degrees, 20. Okay, what about y? 50. Okay, let's see z then. Let's make this 20 degrees upwards or 5 degrees upwards. Yeah, this looks fine, right? So you can click on restart now, then you can restart the game. Okay, I didn't do this in my previous version of my game, but this looks cool. Okay, you can do that. So this is all about HTML and CSS. Now we'll move towards JavaScript. So first let's see what our game should be, right? Okay, so before doing anything, right, we don't want this game over to display every time. We want the game over to be displayed only when our game has been or only when the game has ended, right? So for that, for now we do not want this over to appear. Okay, so the first instinct that you may have is, if I tap display of none over here, then this can go, right? But no, since this is positioned absolute with the body, display none will not work. So there is another property that you can change, that is visibility of hidden, and then this will go. Now if this is visible, this will come. Okay, so for now I'm going to make this hidden. Okay, so this goes. Okay, so now let's move towards the logic of this application. So first let's see all of the winning combinations that we can do, right? Because we need to know uh, and which pattern will the user win in this game, or the computer will win in this game. Okay, so the first winning combination can be along the first three boxes. The next can be in the second one. The third one is the last three. Okay, so as you can see in those boxes, the 0, 1, 2 position is the first combination. The next combination is 3, 4, 5. Then it is 6, 7 and 8. Okay, so first let's type in this combination in our JavaScript file. So okay, so I have this empty. So first I'm going to write const winning combos. Combos is equal to, I'm going to make two-dimensional array. So the first one is horizontal combinations. Okay, in the horizontal combinations, what I have is, I have 0, 1 and 2. Then the next one that I have is 3, 4 and 5. Then I have 6, 7, 8. Then there is vertical combinations, and then finally the diagonals. Okay, so diagonal combinations. Okay, so this I'll be using it later, but for now what I want is, whenever I click on any of these boxes, I want an X to appear, right, in this, because we are X. So to do that, I'm going to select all of these grids. So these are classes, right? So what I can do is const grids equals to document. This is a simple syntax for DOM manipulation. So document.query select or all. So this will select everything. Now you can pass class name. So grid, right? So, but now grid is a class, right? This grid is a class. So we need to put a dot over here. Now if I console.log grids and then see what grids actually is, then we can say it is the array that contains all of our 9 grids from 0 to 8. Okay, so this grids is an array. So let's write over here array of all nodes or all grids. So right, yes. Okay, now what I can do now is to put an X on each of these boxes. I can loop through each of these box, and then the inner HTML of those. By inner HTML I mean over here. So if I keep an X over here, as you can see, an X appears, right? So in my inner HTML, in this place, whenever I click on this box, in this place an X should appear, right? So how do I do that? So to do that, what I can do is grids. So I go in each of these grids. So for each grid, right, what I can do is I can make an arrow function that does grid dot inner HTML equals to x. So if I do this, all of this should be equal to x. See, all of the HTML inside of this are x, and this looks something like this in my HTML right now. So inside my see, all of them are x, all of them have x. Okay, so but I don't want that. I want whenever I click on these grids, I want the access to appear. So what I can do then for that is I can do grid dot add event listener. I want a click event. So whenever I click on this, I want a function. So the function. What is the function name be? Who clicks on this? The user clicks, right, or the human clicks. So that means it is the turn of the user. So I'm going to give the function name user turn. And then only once, so you can only press on the one box at one time, just for once, right? So that means once equal to true, once equal once is true. This is an object. Now let's make a function of user turn. So now what I want is whenever I click on this, I want x to appear. So now what I can do is grid dot add event listener of, sorry, not add event, grid dot inner HTML should be equal to x. But this will not work, because what is this grid inside this function? This grid is only the scope for this function. So we need to pass something over here as a parameter. So what should the parameter be? What if we pass the click event itself? If we pass the click event as named as e from this function, there is and while adding the event listener, there is no need for us to specify any event that goes inside. It automatically will pass the parameter. So if we pass this click event as e, then what I can do is let grid equals to e.target. That means whichever box has been clicked, or whichever grid has been clicked, that will be this grid over here, right? Or we can even name this box. So this now e will get is the click event, and either target means which box or which grid has been selected. That grid will be stored in this variable called box, and then this variable box dot inner HTML. So that means inside that particular box there an x should appear. So if we save this, we click on this box now, as you can see an x appears, right? So we can play around, we can press x all the way over here. This is fun. But now, as I said last time, whenever I click on and when an x appears, the background class of this, or the background color should change to something. So that means if an x is in this place, then there should be a cross class over here, right? In this way, cross class, like that, right? So to do that happen, what I can also do is box dot class list dot add. I want to add a class list of cross. If I save this, and if I do this now, as you can see, a red class appears, which is exactly what you want. Now we can paint this all red, right? Okay. So this is the basic setup that we're going to do in the JavaScript. Now, after the basic setup, what I want is there are two players, right? So the two players are const AI and const human. Now what will each of those players have? The players will have their text. So the text for AI will be an O, and the text for us or human will be an X. And finally the class for AI will be circle, and for us it will be cross. And then the score for both of them will be 0. CORE should be equal to 0, right? So that means let's make an object of both of these. So let's make the text to O for AI, class to circle, and score to 0. And then let's copy this. Then let's make human an object. The text should be X, the class should be cross, and then the score should be 0. Now what I can do is, instead of writing an X over here, what I can do is I can write human dot text, and then in my class I can do human dot class. If I save this, nothing will change, everything will remain the same. But now if I change this to AI, then now as you can see our code is much more modular, right? So we are human, so we are going to make this as human.text and human.class. Okay, now whenever I click on this option over here, randomly the AI should choose some place in this grid, right? So let's see, function AI or AI turn. Okay, in the function AI turn, so the AI should choose its move based on the empty cells right now, right? So for now, let me give you a heads up. In this particular tutorial, we are not going to make an AI that is able to understand the base move. For example, if the board is in this way, okay, let's say there is an O over here, there's an X over here, and then it is the turn of AI right now. Okay, AI's turn. Now as you can see, the base move for AI is this right over here, right? Because it can win this game. So this kind of prediction or this kind of gameplay can be achieved using Minimax algorithm. Okay, so Minimax algorithm. But today in this tutorial, we will not be applying this Minimax algorithm to our code. Okay, I'll be coming back to this project and then applying this algorithm again. But for now, what we will be doing is, in this grid, let's say there are this kind of axes present. Okay, this is the board. Okay, not over here. Okay, this is the board. Then the AI, now if it is AI's turn, then AI will see which cell of this board is empty right now, or which grid is empty, and then it will go over here. So in this case, this grid is empty. Let me change the color. In this case, this grid is empty, this grid is empty, and then this grid is empty. So AI will see randomly, it will choose a box or a number. Okay, so let's say it choose a number 3. So the 3 is 0 1 2 3. 3 is, you know, AI cannot go over there because 3 is already filled. That means it will again choose a number. Now let's say it chose a number 2. Okay, that means now the cell 2 is empty. That means it can go and it can place the circle over there, so it will go and place the circle over here. Okay, so randomly it will choose a grid and then it will place that circle over there if that grid is empty. So what I can do is, to find out the random number, I'm going to make a variable. Let random number is equals to math dot random. This is the function in JavaScript that calls random number. If I console.log random number, then save it, and then if I press over here, nothing happens in the console as well, because we have not called this function, right? AI turn. Now when should the AI be playing? After we have played, right? That means we need to call the function over here. So AI turn. Now if I save to over here, and then if I select X, as you can see, a random number appears, but the random number always appears between 0 and 1. Okay, so how do we make the random number to appear between 0 and 8, or 0 and 8, because we need 9 numbers? So it is simple. If we multiply any number between 0 and 1 with any number, let's say we multiply that by 9, then what do we get? We get a number that is less than or equal to 9, because 0 into 9 is equal to 0, and then 1 into 9 is equal to 9. Means anything that comes in between over here will result in something that is greater than 0 and then smaller than or equal to 9, right? Get a point? Now to do that, that means what we can do is, if we multiply this by 9, and then let's see what happens. Go over here, 8 0 6 6 0 0 1 6 6, right? So random number are appearing between 0 and 8, right? Which is good, but I do not need the number that is at the right, sorry, I don't need the number that is after the decimal point. I only need the number before the decimal point. So what I can do is, there are two ways to do that. I can take the ceiling of the number or the floor of the number. If I take the ceiling and the number is 8, let's And if I take the ceiling of the number, and let's say the random number that appeared was 8.12, then the ceiling of this number will be 9, right? Ceiling will be 9 dot ceiling. But in our boxes array, there is nothing that is 9. If I go and console.log over here, console.log grids with index of 9, then it is an error because there is nothing to be console log undefined, right? The highest that we can go is 8 over here, right? It gives us the 8th block over here. That means we must take the floor of the number, because the floor of 8.99 is also 8. That means if we take the floor of this value, math.floor, if I save this, now you'll always see a number that is below 9 and greater than 0. It means 0 to 8. Just good. Now what I want is, let's also console.log that particular box as well, okay, that particular grid. So this will be the index. Now this random number will be the index, and then grids random number. Now if we go and do this, then as you can see, we will get a box. Now in this situation, you can see the box 4 was selected, but if I click on this now, and if I click on this, it chose the box 0, right? We do not want the box 0 because it already has an X inside it, so that means the computer cannot play in it. So we need to check if the box is empty. That means what you can do is, and what is the meaning of the box being empty? It means that if there is nothing inside it, that means if grids random index random number dot inner HTML is equal to nothing, is empty, then only console.log this grid. Okay, so let's see now. I'm choosing to choose grid 7. Grid 7 was empty. Grid 1 is empty. Grid 2 is also empty. Now see, when I click on grid 2, nothing came because it probably chose between grid 2 or 1 or 7, right? So that means let's see which number it chose. So console.log random number. So if I click on this, it chose 7. So 7 was empty. It chose 8. It is empty. 1. So 1 is not empty. That means it chose nothing. But we want it to again choose. That means we can call this function once again. That means if I do else over here, I can call this function. So AI turn like this. That means now whenever I click on any of this box, it will select a number. Let's see. It chose 0. 0 was not empty. It chose 7. 7 was empty. It chose 2. 2 is empty. 6 is empty. Now see, it was 1. 1 was not empty. 5 was not empty. It was 2. So 2 is empty. And finally it shows a box that is 6. 6 is not empty. So let's click over here, and then it is looking. Now our program is almost ready. The only thing that we need to do now is, I guess it crashed. Let's open this with live server once again. Okay, and then let's inspect this. Don't worry about the crashing. It is crashing because it cannot find another box that is not empty. So that is the reason it crashed. We will fix that. So now I don't want to console.log this. I don't want to console.log this. I don't want this. I also don't want this. What I want is, in that box, in inner grid random number, the inner HTML should be equal to and ai.text, and then grids random number dot class list dot add. So the class that should be added is ai.class. If I save this, then as you can see, in this position the computer chose okay, which is good. So now the computer we can play against the computer with no worries, right? Now, the only thing now that is left is we need to see who won the game. So that is the reason we placed this winning combos over here. Let's remove this. And it is now we kept this winning combos. Also, we also need to find out whether the game was drawn or not. So how do we determine if the game was drawn? Now I'm going to do it in some different, okay, I'm going to do it in a different way. I am not going to make the user to to right away be able to change the text and then add the class list. What I'm going to make a function name as turn, and inside this function I'm going to pass a box. So by the box I mean this box, and then over here I'm going to cut this and then I'm going to paste this over here. Okay, so this function is for the user, this function is for swap turn. So let's call this swap turn, let's call this user turn. This now let's call user, now let's not call a turn right now, so let's call user turn over here, user turn. Okay, and then user turn, this should be swap turn. Okay, now inside this function I should pass this box, that means box, right, in this way. Now I should check, before letting the AI to play, I should check if this game has been drawn, right? That means if the game has been drawn, then there is no reason for the AI to play to continue the game. That means if it is not drawn, then the AI should be able to continue the game. Else, do nothing. And if it is draw, then it is draw. It's fine, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to first make a function that is known as draw. So function draw. So inside this function of draw, what I'm going to check is if all of these boxes has a class that is red or blue. That means if all those boxes are painted in either of those colors, then it is draw. Make sense? So what should I do is, if I take all of the elements of the array grid, so grids dot every. Okay, so before doing this, let's just see what does this particular thing do. So let's, if I console.log dot grid or grids, it is going to print all of the elements in this grids array. So if I see over here in my console, you can see it is printing my all of those grids. It is not printing the nodes, it is printing the grid. Okay, so that means if I now, let's remove this, and then if I enable this function grids dot every, so inside every this grids, if each of the grid, so grid, let's make an arrow function, so every also takes an arrow function. If every of this grid, so grid dot class list dot contains, if it contains AI dot class or it contains human dot class, so that means grid dot class list dot contains human dot class, right? That means if any one of this is true, then this function should return true. That means if I return this, then this will return either true or false. If this is false, and since this is an OR condition, if this one is false and then this one is false, then this is true. Oh sorry, this is false. And then if any one of this is true, then this particular line will return true. That means this function or this every grids must also return true. That means if it returns false, then it is false. If it returns true, then it is true. That means now if it is not drawn, then it is AI drawn. If it is drawn, then the game is over, right? So if I now the game won't rest. So now if I do this, then if I change over here, if I do this, then the game, now the game is drawn, right? The game has been drawn. Now if the game has been drawn, that means now I should know if the game has been drawn or not. So how do I check if the game has been drawn or not? So it is simple. Inside my drawn function, if the game has been drawn, then there is no need for the players to play, right? That means if draw, I'm going to do it inside my drawn of the user, then console.log game drawn. Let's save it and then let's see. I'm going to play random moves, then game drawn, right? Nothing else, which is good. Now again, so what I should be checking is the final thing I need is if the game has been won by someone. That means function won. Then who won? Player. I'm going to pass player in this one function. So how do I check if someone has won this game? So as you can see, we made this particular array, right? So this is two-dimensional array. We added all of these patterns or all of these combinations or all of these win combinations inside this. So what we can check is if in this at the 0 position, in 1 position and in 2 position, is there the same text or not. That means if in this 3 position there is XXX or an OOO, then the game has been won by either human or player. Similarly, in this position, if the text of these 3 boxes is same, then the game has been won. Similarly, for these 3 boxes, these 3 boxes, these 3 boxes, these 3 boxes, and then these 3, right? The diagonals on all the horizontals. That means what I can do is, for my win combinations dot sum, so the sum function returns true if any one of the conditions that is inside the arrow function of it is true. That means inside the win combinations, all let's see, all of the combos, name is combos, so not this bracket, small bracket, let's make an arrow function of all of those combos. So combos is every combos right now, so every combo inside this, that means I'm taking all of these combos, right? That means, and then I'm going to pass index of those combos. So that means this is the index 0, this is the index 1, this is the index 2. That means now grids index, right? So grids index dot inner HTML should be equal to player dot text. That means now this index I have, if this index is 0, right? That means now this index will contain 0, 1, 2. So in all of the 0, 1, 2 position, in this 3 position, is there the are those all 3 boxes have same player dot text. That means if the player dot text is O, then these 3 must have an O. If the player text is X, then these 3 must have an X. Same goes for the bottom 3. For all those 3 boxes, that can be 1. That means if this is true, then return true. So this will return true. And then if this is true, then again this must also return true. So return. And then if if both of this is true, then this must return true, right? So if this one is true, this one returns true. That means if all of those are true, then over here, as you can see, this is every, right? So every combination, that means this or this or this. If any one of this combination is true, then this function will return true. That means now I can simply check if someone has won or not. So let's make a variable over here. Let one human equals to 1. I'm going to pass human. I'm sorry, wait. So I'm going to pass human in this. So one human, right? So if human has 1, that means else. Now this can be true or false. So else, if the human has 1, that means one human. Then what I can do is I can console.log you win, right? I can console.log you win, and then I also need to check it inside my inside the function, this AI strand, right? So after this grid has been added or the class has been added, I'm going to again make a variable, let one AI equals to 1 AI, and pass AI, and then if one AI is true, then console.log you lose, because AI won in this case. Now let's see if I can win this game or not. So if I go in this 3 position, then I win, of course. Now let's see if AI can win. I don't think in this position AI can win, so let's draw this game. Okay, the game drawn. Let's see if AI can win. Let's go over here, and then you lose, which is good, right? Now, as you can see, I can still play. So I should be stopping this game as soon as this is, as soon as anyone has, if the game is done or anyone has won. So that is pretty simple. If I just turn on this visibility now, if I turn on this, then it is pretty simple that, and then if I click on restart, then everything should reset, right? That means, so I should select this overlay now, right? So our game has been finished. There is now the only thing left to do is if I need to enable this overlay. So let's go and select this overlay. So let's make the let variable over here. So let overlay equals to document dot get element by id overlay, and then after everyone has won, I'm going to make a new function game end, and then I'm going to make overlay dot style dot visibility should be equals to visible. Okay, and then after you lose, and also after you win, sorry, let me first, not this, okay, let me first go over here, and then let's also go over here, and then this function, let's add game end function. Let's format this document, okay, and then the game end function. Now if anyone wins, the game has been won, but this button is still does not work, so I need to reset all of the board once I click on this restart, right? First let's select the restart button. So let restart equals to document dot get element by id, that should be restart, and then whenever I click on the restart button, then the game should start. That means I need a function that starts the game in the first place. So that means let's make a function start game. Inside this I'm going to pass, I'm going to make this function over here. So that means I need to start game over here always at the beginning, and then what I'm going to do is at the start of this game, right, at the start of the game, I'm going to make grid dot inner html. So first, okay, let's not do anything now. After I click on restart, dot add event listener, click event, comma, this should be start game, should start, right? So let's save this, let's win the game at first, and then if I restart the game, oh, okay, and then if I restart the game, then this overlay should go away, right? That means now what I can do is, inside my start game function, if I can do overlay dot style dot visibility should be equals to visible, sorry, hidden. If I save this now, and then if I win the game, okay, and then restart, now as you can see, this all of these are still over here. I need to clear them out, right? So what I can do now is, inside this for each, I can do grid dot class list dot remove, can remove ai dot class and human dot class, and then I also should remove this x and o's. That means grid dot inner html should be equals to nothing. Now if I win the game, oh, okay, so the game was probably the AI one. Now if I click on restart, then see all of them are cleared. Now the next thing that I want is, I want the score to be +1 whenever the game has been won by someone, right? That means what I can do is, if I win the game, okay, if I win the game, then human dot score should increase by 1, that is ++, and similarly over here ai dot score should be ++. Okay, and then what I need to do is, in this place of this 0 and in this 0, I need to add those scores. So that means let's select these two IDs or those two elements. So let AI score equals to document dot get element by ID, that should be AI score, and then similarly it should be human score. Copy this and then paste it over here, and then in my AI score and human score, let's just add human score dot inner HTML should be equals to human dot score. Save this, and then this should be AI dot score. This should be AI dot score in HTML. Okay, save this now, and if I win this game, then score is +1, right? I won this game. So this is also done. Now the final thing left is whenever someone wins the game, over here the result should say game draw or you won, right? So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a let variable again. So let message equals to none. For now, empty string. Whenever the game has been drawn, I'm going to make message equals to game draw. Whenever you win the game, the message should be equals to you win. And then if you lose, then the message should be equals to you lose. Then I'm going to, I'm going to select this result over here, right? This result. Let's copy this line and then let's add result. Copy this, paste result over here, and then finally in my game end function I'm going to add result dot inner HTML should be equals to message. Let's save this, and then now let's save this, and then now if someone wins the game, then the result is you win. Let's see if I can lose this game or draw this game at least. Okay, if I place over here, okay, the game drawn. Okay, now see, this says you lose. Done. That means, okay, now you lose should say AI score. So AI that's inner HTML. Oh, so it should be AI score. Testing. Okay. Okay. So this. Okay. So the AI score. This should be AI score. That will fix if I lose against the artificial intelligence. So say you lose. That means AI score will into a +1, which is good. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. Then now there are a few bugs that I want you to fix. Oh, okay. Also, the last thing that I want to do is if it is we can also optimize this by one more way, that is if the game has not been drawn and it is not won by human, then only the AI can play, right? That means let's also add one by human, and then this won't change anything, but okay, something has been changed. It is not human. What happened? Let's refresh. Okay, so okay, it is not one, right? So that means it should be not one, not true. This would be not true. Okay, so now it is you lose. Okay, so the game works. So this is it. Now there are a few bugs that I want you to fix, and then I want you to tag Hackfiber on your box. So what happens is whenever I click on this option over here, as you can see, this changes to X. I can change this to X, right? This is one bug that I left here. It is quite easy to solve. I want you guys to solve it, and then you can upload those files in GitHub and then tag us by adding the GitHub link to your account in Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, anywhere you like. All the links are in the description below. So I want you guys to fix this bug over here, and that's it. I don't think there are any other bugs. If you find any other bugs, then the next time that I come to make the Minimax algorithm, I'll be solving it. Okay. So that is kind of a homework for you guys. So I hope you guys could follow along this tutorial. This was fairly easy to make. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Thank you.